What's up and welcome to FPL Today. I'm J&O and welcome to the How to Play Fantasy Premier League series, where we go over all the parts of the Fantasy Premier League game to make sure you're ready for the Fantasy Premier League 2017-2018 season to get the best ranking and win your mini leagues. Today is the 10th day of 30 days of FPL. We've been going past a week now with live streams and FPL content for you guys. So if you're into the Fantasy Premier League, consider subscribing to this channel. We've got a great community growing here at the moment. Over 2,700 subscribers whilst I'm recording this, and we're growing exponentially. So come join the FPL family and let's get on with this video. So today we are looking at rotation, and rotation can be a big part of your Fantasy Premier League game because we do have 15-man squads in the game. We do talk more about formations and budget of how to build that 15-man squad and the basics, all in a playlist on my channel called How to Play Fantasy Premier League. So go check that stuff out if you haven't already. But today we're focused on rotation, and it is a strategy used by a lot of FPL managers, especially at the beginning of the season when you don't have as much money as you will have later on in the game. Basically, you can build team value in this game, which should be a video coming to the channel shortly, as the season progresses if you take advantage of the transfer market in the game. However, when you start, you only have 100 million and you can't fit all the best players in. So that is where rotation comes in. The strategy is only applicable in squad-based games, so it is not applicable in fantasy football games where you only have an 11-man squad. And what you do is you find 2 or more players that are cheap. There's no real point in rotating players that aren't cheap, who have favourable fixtures if you put their fixture lists together. In essence, if you have 2 players and one is playing Man City one game week and the other is playing Huddersfield, the Huddersfield game is more likely to return points for that player than for the other player who's playing Man City. So you'd bench the player playing Man City and you'd play the player playing against Huddersfield. That is the basis of it. And then the next game week, those teams might swap around and you might have the other player playing Huddersfield and the other player playing Man City, and so you just put the other one onto the bench. One of the rotation strategies is to just pick teams that geographically or for whatever other reason in the fixture list just rotate home and away games and pick the player that has the home fixture. Last season, most teams got more clean sheets and performed generally better at home than they did away. There are of course exceptions to this rule, but the majority of teams do better at home than they do away, which is why you would try and play the player that's playing at home. But me personally, I prefer to pick the teams that look like they're doing well, rotate their players as far as the fixtures of the teams they're coming up against. But both are viable strategies, especially early on in the season, if used correctly, and it can be used incorrectly quite easily, because for instance you may think one player is less likely to get points because of a difficult fixture and then that team outperform and do better than you thought. But the whole point of the strategy is to try and maximise your points from the squad of 15 men that you have. So we'll now look at home and away versus favourable fixtures as rotation strategies. Last season, before it started, a lot of people were starting to think home and away doesn't really affect teams' performance. You just need to find the budget options in teams that are overperforming for the season and then rotate them for the favourable fixtures. But last season, clean sheets at home were more common than clean sheets away. Only Chelsea conceded more at home than they did away out of all 20 teams in the Premier League last season, and only Chelsea, Hull, Liverpool, Man City and Man United got less clean sheets at home than away. So that's 5 teams out of 20 that got more clean sheets away than they did at home. So 15 teams got most of their clean sheets at their home stadium. The cons of a home and away rotation though is you're ignoring good defences. If you actually looked at the best teams with defences last year, Southampton and Everton both got 5 or more clean sheets away, and their defence was better than, say, if you were looking at Huddersfield or other sides, even if they were at home. So potentially, if a team are doing very well, we've had West Brom do very well as a defensive unit before. Southampton and Everton generally get a decent amount of clean sheets with some potential budget options there. Sometimes it might be better to not just follow strictly the home and away rotation. The good rotations I can see that are home and away for this season, you have Brighton and Huddersfield rotating very well for home and away fixtures, Crystal Palace and Stoke, Leicester City and Newcastle, and Swansea and West Brom. That is if you want to make it very simple for yourself and not really overlook too much who you're playing. You just see who's playing at home and put them in. And then if we have a look at favourable fixtures, with favourable fixtures you can even try and do 3-man rotation. Say you've got 2 premium defenders and you want to only play 1 defender alongside those 2 premium choices throughout the year. The favourable 3-way rotations that I can see this season, you have Swansea, West Bromwich Albion and Bournemouth, and their fixtures for the first 8 game weeks are West Brom away, Watford at home, Stoke at home, Newcastle at home, Brighton at home, Watford and Watford at home, and then Huddersfield at home. You also have Brighton, Everton and Leicester as a decent 3-way rotation for the first 8 game weeks. You have Stoke, Brighton, Watford, West Bromwich Albion, Huddersfield, Newcastle, Burnley and West Bromwich Albion. And then you also have Southampton, Crystal Palace and Burnley if there is a decent cheap Southampton option when the season starts. And you have Huddersfield, West Brom, Swansea, Watford, Southampton, Huddersfield all at home, a Stoke away game and then Newcastle at home. Of course you can make it simpler on yourself and just have 1 defender that you bring in because of good fixtures, or that you're just going to use on the bench and only look at rotating 2. Same can be done with midfield, but I generally prefer to use my rotation in defence. And the favourable fixtures I can see for 2-team rotation, you have Southampton and Bournemouth, you have Swansea, Watford at home, Huddersfield away, Watford, Brighton, Manchester United unfortunately at home, but there's probably going to be every now and again fixtures that aren't that favourable. Then you have Stoke away and Newcastle at home, so that is a decent rotation pair there. You have Crystal Palace and Burnley as well, with Huddersfield, West Brom, Swansea, Palace, Southampton and Huddersfield all at home, with a Manchester United away in game week 7, but then West Ham at home as well. You can look at Newcastle and Everton if there's a cheap Everton defender option because of Coleman's injury, and you'd have Stoke at home, Huddersfield away, West Ham at home, Swansea away, Brighton away, Burnley at home and then Brighton away. And then of course there's West Ham and Huddersfield as a rotation pair, with Crystal Palace away, Newcastle, Southampton, Huddersfield, Leicester at home, Burnley away, Swansea at home and then Burnley away again. So those are just some of the rotation options that you could consider. You can of course find your own rotation options, taking into account who you think will do well and what favourable fixtures you consider to be true. But that is the basis of rotation strategy, and it's something that is very common amongst the top players early on in the season, not so much later on when people have a higher team value and can maybe pick 3 defenders that are decent shouts and very likely to get clean sheets or goals. But that is the strategy that most people will take at the start of the season, usually with £4.5 million defenders. So guys, I hope this video has been of help to you and will help you do well in the Fantasy Premier League this season. Thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel recently, and we've recently brought in credits where I thank my patrons at the end of the video in the credit roll for being consistent supporters to the channel. If you want to be in the credit roll, you can of course. You can check my Patreon link out in the description down below. I've been JNO, this has been FPL Today, day 10 of 30 days of FPL, and remember, it's all about the game.